Story 1. After 10 years, I found out my daughter is not mine biologically. First off, I haven't used this throwaway account in 6 years. I'm surprised it's still active. Anyway, I got together with my wife about 15 years ago. She came with a pre-made family of a daughter and 2 boys. Then, in October of 2012, she got pregnant. We weren't trying to conceive, but weren't actively trying to prevent either. The date of conception seemingly matched up, and a beautiful baby girl was born August of 2013. I have been led to believe until this last Saturday that she was 100% mine, and I never questioned it. But over the weekend, I took our youngest son, stepson, but you all know I see him as mine, to a show choir event and met up with an old friend from around the time of my daughter's birth. A friend I met through my wife. This friend and I had a few drinks, and she said she needed to get something off her chest that she's been keeping secret for years, and told me everything. I was shocked, to say the least. The next day I called and confronted my wife, and initially she denied it, but admitted to having intimacy with the actual father. I hung up on her, and I had 3 hours to drive home with my son, all the while ignoring her calls. When I got home, she then pulled me aside away from the kids and confessed all. This little girl is my world, and I do not have any intention of turning my back on her. It's not her fault that this happened. But her mother now wants me to try to move past her indiscretion and stay together, stating what we have built since is strong, and I shouldn't tell my daughter about this, as the real father had or has no intentions of being part of her life. I don't think I can forgive her for this. It's too big. I'm so angry right now at her and all her friends that knew but kept silent. I can't leave because I don't want her to state that I abandoned my family. I'm afraid that if I do keep this secret from my daughter, that she will one day find out and hate me for it. If I stay, I can't talk to anyone about it. They'll be confused and astounded that I stuck around, and it would make me feel like less of a man. I would bottle it up and let it eat me up and then rage quit my life. Update. My son was at his cousin's house for a sleepover after his event. I went out with my aunt and uncle, and the friend showed up at the pub we went to. When my aunt and uncle went home, I stayed to chat more. Update on 1/18/2023. I have a DNA test ordered. Wife is in search of alternate residence. She wants couples therapy. I considered shortly until more came to light. I commented a few times below that she had been sending likely bio-dad updates with school pictures. Also went to see him 5 years ago and took him to lunch. I got the results today from the paternity test. 0.0 paternal probability. Initially, when I found out from a supposed friend, I wanted to go nuclear. Ruin lives and the like. But after giving myself time to cool off, I decided that would only hurt the kids. I still see her as my daughter, but now I have much deeper waters to tread and how or when to talk to her about it. Wife and I will be divorcing peacefully. I won't give up my rights to sue either her or bio-dad. Wife did find my last post and spiraled down a rabbit hole reading the comments. It was interesting to see her reactions to the variety of thoughts you guys shared about her. Now it's time to move forward. Really, really tragic. Really a hard situation to be in. I think what's amazing about this story is just how focused he is on making sure the kids have a good life. He's mad about what the wife has done, but he really wants to be a part of these kids' life, and he seems like a really good father. I hope that he does still end up staying in their lives, because I believe he is really good for them. Story 2. Uncle bankrupts his previous employer. Not sure if this is petty or pro or whatever. You be the judge. My uncle is an Indian doctor. In the 90s, there was a massive doctor shortage in Australia, so the government gave him citizenship. Unfortunately, you still had to sit 3 expensive exams to work as a doctor in Australia. These exams cost thousands of dollars. only happened twice a year, had limited sitting spots and times, and had arbitrary pass-fail marks. So many Indian doctors ended up becoming taxi drivers or small businessmen, etc. My uncle decided instead he would reapply and go through Australian medical school. Sure enough, being a doctor for 10 plus years makes medical school easy, and my uncle was top of his class. He decided since he was already pushing 40 plus and had a family, he would apply to become a GP, family physician, instead of applying to be a surgeon like most of his teachers had suggested. At the time, many desperate foreign doctors were applying for GP residency. They would essentially get treated like dirt. They would be forced to work unpaid overtime. They would not be given proper study time or leave to sit mandatory exams. They would pocket the meals, accommodation, study, leave allowances that you were supposed to be paid by the training college. They would roster you to work every Saturday and Sunday shift, and if you refused, they would give you a bad review and your training would be jeopardized. This mostly happened to foreign doctors, as most of them would be in bad debt and highly desperate for any sort of work. When my uncle graduated, he applied for GP training in a practice that is located within an Indian ethnic enclave so that he would have access to religious food and schools, etc. for the kids. Sure enough, this practice engaged in all of the above frackery. My uncle would work every single Saturday shift. During his dedicated study time, he would have to come into work. He got reprimanded for not overcharging patients in line with their framework. Worst of all, when my aunt was really sick and hospitalized, they wouldn't give him any time off to look after her and the kids. The owner of the clinic was a white GP who was openly racist against Indians, Asians, and Aboriginal people, who were a large percentage of the clientele of this clinic. My uncle bided his 3 years, and as soon as his documentation came through making him a GP, he quit that instant. He went down to the local bank and got a loan to open up his practice. All his old patients quickly moved with him to the new practice. The first year he struggled, but his practice quickly became known and word spread. Surprise, surprise, foreign-trained doctors actually work well and care about their patients if you actually care about them and give them appropriate wages and living conditions. More patients and more doctors looked to work with my uncle. Within 2 years, my uncle had a GP practice that had 4 doctors, 2 nurses, 2 trainees, and a manager. His practice easily rivaled his original teachers. He then started 2 more GP practices with the money he was pulling in. These practices trapped his old teacher's clinic in a 2-kilometer triangle. He would advertise heavily and make sure he could take as much business from his old teacher as he could. Within 5 years, his old teacher's practice went from hiring 6 doctors, 4 nurses, and 6 trainees to just 1 doctor, his old teacher, and no one else. His old teacher tried to sell up his practice to other doctors, but no one would purchase it given how successful my uncle's 3 surrounding practices were. He then tried to sell it to my uncle, who refused to buy it even at a ridiculously low sale price. Instead, he waited for the bank to repossess his old teacher's clinic and then purchased it for a bit more money from the bank. My uncle then repurposed the building into his main offices from where he runs his other 3 practices. He made sure to redevelop his old boss's room into a staff toilet just as one final tribute to the human turd that was his old boss. Edit 1. Thanks for all the comments and the gold. I'm happy my uncle has brought happiness and justice to you all. He is such a generous guy in real life. I'm sure he'd be really happy if he knew what this site even was. As for a follow-up, he didn't even expand any further apart from those 3 clinics. I'm pretty sure the land value of the clinics is worth more than the doctor's business in them nowadays. Sorry if I didn't read your comment. There are so many discussions going on. For people asking if I had deleted it, I'm not sure why. Or if it is deleted, as I can still see it, was or is deleted or whatever. Thanks again, everyone. See you around. It just sounds like this guy just outworked the old competition. He just had to just be himself be his hardworking self and prove the old teachers wrong. It's just really happy that this person was able to expand the businesses and be able to succeed where it seems like everything and everyone was against him just because of his race. And just all the little touches, converting the old boss's office into a toilet. Just perfect.
Please like and subscribe if you've made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day.
Story 3. You disown me. So, that's no reason for keeping us out of your wedding. So, not my story, but my best friend I will call JJ. And it happened about 2 years ago. I have his permission to post this. JJ came out to his family when he was about 27 years old. Aside from them, everyone else in his life knew he was gay. And there was a good reason for it. As he expected, his parents reacted horribly to the news and basically disowned him at that moment. They later told both extended families and his uncles and grandparents to cut him off, too. His maternal grandmother went as far as to try and take him out of his unalive maternal grandfather's will. She failed due to the will's conditions. No one could modify it, not even the main representative, aka Grandma, and homosexuality was not listed in the conditions that could make the inheritance void. Or Grandpa didn't expect it to happen, or he just didn't care. Take your guess. JJ was legally the partial owner of some properties and also got a substantial amount of money, which got even bigger when he reclaimed in cash his corresponding share of the houses, which forced his family to buy them from him. The other option was losing the properties in a public sale, as stated by our country's laws. JJ didn't need the money, actually. By this point, he was a moderately successful professional and lived in his own apartment. But it severed any legal binding he had with his family that could become a problem in the future. He still kept good relationships with his sister and most of his cousins. But even if they invited him to family gatherings, he always declined. Fast forward 3 years, and JJ is getting married to his longtime boyfriend, Sky, whose family was the polar opposite of JJ's. When they found out, they made royal wedding-style plans for the guy's elopement. They were, well, are, very wealthy, and JJ contributed to the whole extravaganza with a portion of his inheritance. He invited as his guests his friends, including yours truly as his best man, some coworkers, his sister, and the cousins he still spoke to. Don't be wrong, there were a lot of people. The wedding was amazing, done in an underground. Literally speaking, it was a freaking cave venue. His sister took him to the altar. There was an orchestra playing, etc. Fairy tale style. And the after party, well, I can't remember half of it because I was so drunk, but it was from another world. They said go big or go home, and they went really big. But enough of the context. You came here for the juicy part. JJ told the good cousins not to tell anything to his parents or other family members about the wedding because he didn't want trouble. But obviously the next day, their social media accounts were full of pictures and word spread like wildfire. At first, it was small things. He started receiving calls from some aunts about why they weren't invited. The bad cousins complained via Facebook and other nuisances. He just ignored them and blocked numbers and accounts. He did not want or need to give explanations when they had all made clear their position years prior. But one day, hell came directly to the door. His parents, P&M, his maternal grandmother, MG, and paternal grandparents, PGs. All the heads of the families came to visit. How they found where he lived is still a mystery to him. Sky was working and JJ was alone in the house, so there was no one to help him against the Crook Squad. His name, not mine. I can't actually translate because he didn't use exact words when he told me this, but it seems at first they tried to be gentle, asking how he could leave them out of such an important event that directly affected the family. Dudes, really? And things like that. His mom even used the "you took away my chance of seeing my only male son marriage" argument. He pointed out that they were the ones that expelled him from the family and that they hated everything gay. Half of that wedding was LGBT crowd, if you're wondering. They classified his exile as a misunderstanding. The bickering between the six continued for a long time until he got tired and asked what they wanted, as he could not redo the wedding. MG spilled the beans. Ungrateful brat, at least compensate us for not inviting us to a wedding we paid for. That was the problem. MG and his parents were mad he had used the family money on the ceremony. He told me they actually thought he paid for everything and had burnt out all the inheritance, when it was more at 30 or 40% of the deal. Sky's family paid more and JJ still had inheritance money. And they wanted it back. They had brought the PGs with them as an additional emotional leverage. As I told you earlier, JJ had made sure that money had no legal bindings to his family anymore. But for some reason, they still believed it was theirs to a point and were mad he had spent it. He confronted them, and they threw away their facade. What came next was a serious fight in which both JJ and his father ended up hitting each other until the neighbors called the police. Charges were pressed on both sides, but in the end, the case was declared a tie. Don't ask me how that was possible, because I don't know. And JJ was not forced to pay 1 cent. He was also able to ask for restraining orders against all of them. Till this day, JJ is still shaken about the event. He had prepared himself for years, knowing that his family would hate him because of his, orientation, but he still retained some hope that far in the future they could mend things up. He lost that hope after they tried to emotionally scam him. It's better that he had severed all those ties. They did not care one bit about him or mending things up. They just wanted the money. That's it. It's cold. For all the emotion they tried to show, that was just a cold move. I want to know how that case ended up as a tie, too. It's great that he had severed any obligations, and he was able to get out of it unscathed.
Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.